This is a business, and it's the business of warfare.
They're selling y'all wolf tickets, people. You're eating them right up.
Welcome back. Don't sleep. You are locked in with GogoPoda. I am Trav on the ones and twos for this, our UFC 309 preview show. Tons of great scraps to talk about, especially on this main card. So keep it dialed with us. I will be directing traffic for these fine gentlemen on this episode, starting with the public school era Terra, Scott Barrett. How you doing tonight, my man?
I'm doing good. Happy to be here. Excited to dive into this. What I kept shitting all over this card, and now I'm actually excited about it.
Dude, it's pretty dynamite. Like, there's some names that you haven't necessarily heard of a ton, but I think we, as people who are maybe a little bit more hardcore about the sport, know that there's going to be some electricity on this card, to say the least. Moving down to the vet with the bets, TJ Calkins. How are you? How are we feeling about the cheddar making on UFC 309's card?
I'm kind of on the fence. There's just a lot of unplayable stuff, but there's also some interesting stuff that we'll get into. So, and just a mind-blowing stat, just from a general betting perspective that I have queued up for you guys. So,
love it. There are some fat favorites on this card. Last but certainly not least, the man who knows the X's and O's. I got a rhyme for you this week, Stefan. I had to make sure. I'm kind of a rapper, no big deal. Okay. Stefan Cox, how are you this evening? And how's the vibe going in?
Yo, super excited for this card, man. It's two fighters who are just amazing, crazy legacies who haven't fought in a while. And, a surprisingly strong undercard. We got some names to talk about, honestly, you might not be aware of, who are super exciting on the feet.
Yes, sir. We like to go deep on the GogoPoda UFC show. No more time for sweet nothings, though, fellas. But I do have to remind the people to follow us on X and Instagram at GogoPoda UFC on both. We've got some exclusive stuff dropping over there. We've got some fighter profiles, tales of the tape. Having fun over there, so make sure you give us a follow. And, of course, make sure you're subscribed to this YouTube channel. You'll see some clips going up, some shorts, and, of course, the flagship episodes attached to each numbered UFC card. So getting into it, fellas, at the top of the bill, the fight that maybe nobody was asking for, I'm not sure. Jon Jones facing Stipe Miocic. This is one of those big heavyweights or big favorite situations like I was talking about. Minus 625 for Bones Jones, plus 455 for Stipe. 1 year after this was originally scheduled, guys. Scott, I'm going to start with you. This is a UFC show, so I feel like I have to throw out the obligatory, is Jon Jones your greatest of all time?
Emphatically, no. I don't think this is controversial. I know this will be a debate once Stefan chimes in, but to me, no. And keep in mind, I came into the game a lot later than everyone else, but looking back over his track record, he beat Cyril Gane. Okay, Gane was a jack. He's just a guy to me. He ducked Francis Ngannou. He would have been an underdog against Ngannou, I think. He ducked Tom Aspinall. He refuses to fight him. There's no amount of money the UFC could pay. Why? Because he's an underdog in that fight. This is your GOAT. He's an underdog, whatever. Since 2016, beat Cyril Gane, just a guy. He lost to Dominic Reyes. I'm sorry. I watched that fight. TJ watched that fight and agrees with me. A split decision against Thiago Santos. Decision win over Anthony Smith, who couldn't finish a methed up, skinny home invader. He beat Alex Gustafsson. Okay, who cares? It was a no contest against DC. Why? Because he got popped for steroids. The fight before that, a decision win against Ovince St. Preux. I can't pronounce that name. I don't even know who he is.
Drink.
Everything before that has an asterisk on it because of the steroids he was obviously on. This is not my GOAT. A GOAT is a Michael Jordan, a Kobe Bryant, a Tom Brady, defied all odds, never gave up, relentless competitor. This is not Jon Jones. Cherry picked everything, special treatment, everything, steroids, can't get finishes. Not my GOAT.
Did you just describe Stipe? Sorry, go on.
I mean, that's a valid point to have, but I think a lot of people just dislike Jon's personality. because he makes himself very hard to like. So we kind of discount what he's actually done in the sport. Like the names you ran through, I don't think there's a single resume that you could put next to Jon Jones's resume. Who you like, yo, this guy has beaten bigger names than Jon has. And like people say that like Jon was beating these guys when older. Look at the ages he's beating them at. Like it was 31, 32, 30, which is supposed to be what like a fighter's prime, like right before like they're about to like fall off, which is around like 35 is generally where the drop off, unless you're like in the heavier weight classes.
Yeah, how many home runs did Mark McGwire hit in what was it, 1998?
I do not know. Like
I'm
Mark
saying
McGwire apparently he hit a lot. Maybe I don't know. Like I don't know. He can help me out.
I think
Who's
it's like
the baseball
70.
goat?
I think it's like 70.
I don't know.
Who's the baseball goat?
Babe Ruth,
no one
maybe?
says. Yeah, no one says Barry Bonds. Why? Because of
I
steroids.
do. I do. You can take his Pittsburgh only career, and he might be the GOAT.
All right, homerism aside, yeah. So that you have the steroid asterisk. Since I've been a fan, I've been underwhelmed.
Okay, look, the steroid asterisk. Well, we gotta look at the other greats then. Look at Anderson Silva. People consider him the greatest. He's literally popped as well. Nobody really says the whole steroid asterisk next to Silva's name. You got Fedor, who's like a really big name that people like to talk about. Another contender for the GOAT. And where did he fight the promotion? Pride. In the contracts in Japan, they explicitly stated, we do not test for steroids. That was the type of promotion that Pride was. So if we're going to talk about asterisks with steroids, then we got to discount names like Silva, Fedor, GSP. People say GSP never popped. Look at a picture of GSP for UFC 56. He's got 3D deltoids, giant chops. Like he's flexed and he's like kneeling, begging. And he didn't look like that later in his career. His stomach, he's got the typical HGH gut that's like really distended. And then people say, oh, he tried to advocate for more drug testing. When Johnny Hendricks tried to get another company, VADA, to extra drug test with GSP, GSP's representative went cold on Keith Kaiser. The same thing happened with Carlos Condit when he tried to get extra drug testing with GSP. GSP said, nah, we're not trying to do that. So I highly doubt he was clean his entire career either. So then, okay, if you eliminate all those names, then out the process of elimination, maybe DJ could be the GOAT. You know what I mean? Well, he ducked TJ Dillashaw when TJ Dillashaw tried to move down to flyweight. So like when we start nitpicking at every single great, like we can really start nitpicking and make every single one of them look bad if we really try to. Like when I look at
what about this? Let's say Stipe wins. Is he the GOAT in your eyes?
Oh, Stipe! If Stipe wins, nobody can say shit about Fedor again ever. It's like the conversation over. It's like it's just a discussion. Who's best heavyweight ever? Stipe or Fedor? The only two names. If Stipe beats Jones now, conversation done. It's not even close anymore. Stipe is the best heavyweight of all time, bar none. Like just look at the names: Daniel Cormier, Junior Dos Santos, like Alistair Overeem, Jon Jones. It's like that's an insane resume, and he's like finishing half of these guys too. 20 wins, 15 stoppages. You know what I mean? Like, so if Stipe does do that, like, that's a crazy name on like for him. So, yeah, that's big. But in regards to like Jones and his PD, the way I look at his PD asterisks, I look at how other fighters talk about Jones because they're the ones who actually are training in the gym. They get to see who's really doing what behind the scenes, and almost every fighter still says or holds Jon in an extremely high regard. Michael Bisping is a perfect example. He hates steroid users. He can't stand them, you know, like because Vitor Belfort took his eye with a head kick and he was like on the juice. So like he really has something against it. Vanderlei Silva, he's fought a lot of people that have popped. Even Bisping says Jon Jones is still arguably the greatest of all time. And even he says, yeah, maybe the PEDs play a part, but the guy who hates PEDs, his peer, still holds Jones in high regard. So that's why, like, the people who really do this shit for real, if they rank Jones highly, I'm not going to discount the PEDs because they know a lot. They see behind the scenes. So, I mean, whenever a fighter talks about Jon and they don't bring up the PEDs and they just look at them sideways, like just a little bit like, oh, you don't care about drugs? I wonder why. Maybe you can do something a little bit. I don't know. But like Khabib is a perfect example. You think those dudes like are righteous, like straightforward people? None of them ever bring up the drug testing shit. Like they don't even tiptoe around that. And hell, people in their camp have pops. Let you know, like John's just shitty at not getting caught. You know what I mean? A lot of people are doing
Anything.
shit. Like, yeah, really shitty. A lot of people are getting caught too. So, like, yeah, Jones, he arguably could be the best. Like, it really depends on your criteria. GSP, like, there are a couple of right answers. GSP, Anderson Silva, Jon Jones, like the usual suspects, Demetrius Johnson. So, yeah, maybe he could be. You know what I mean? But it's just like, it's subjective at that point.
Very, very, yeah. TJ, do you want to give us just a quick thought on your goat conversation, and then I'm going to move us along through talking through this fight.
So I think so. Joe Rogan argues that goats should be looked at in their absolute prime, at their peak, and not when they've fallen off. So I mean, in that regard, like if you're talking pre-2017 Jon Jones, I mean, it's a very real argument. It's almost like the Bonds argument, where I don't know if PEDs matter after the fact, but yeah. So Jon Jones is up there, like you said, Mighty Mouse. I mean, he's the hardest case to poke a hole into, in my opinion.
Mhm.
So I think that's probably the easiest thing to say. But yes, Stipe, man, when you rattled off that list of names, stuff, and you forgot guys like Verdum and Hunt,
Yeah, exactly.
Big Country, and conspicuously absent from Jones' resume, Francis Ngannou. So I think there's a lot better argument for Stipe than I guess the narrative, the general narrative out there would dictate. And full disclosure, I'm a Cleveland guy, born and raised. I'm a homer. I've hung out with the guy multiple times. He's truly just down to earth, wonderful human. I mean, he was firefighting last week, so there's nothing bad you can really say about Stipe. As far as what I don't even know how to keep going on that, but I'm gonna send it back over to Scott and see what he thinks here. Hearing Stefan's case and just a little bit on Stipe.
Yeah, again, I don't know who the GOAT is. I just know it's not Jon Jones. And I think it very well could be Hamzat. It could be Stipe. It could be Ilya Topuria. I just know when you have conversations surrounding a GOAT, like a Tom Brady, where there's just like no question. I just think there's way too many questions with Jon Jones.
Wait, so Deflategate didn't mean anything when Tom Brady cheats?
that
Oh,
was
good. He can still be a
BS.
GOAT.
On wifey, cheating on wifey.
Oh, well, that
Michael
cheating's
Chandler?
allowed. We're cool with that cheating. At least sports wise, that's not what we condone on the GogoPoda. No, I'm sorry.
No, absolutely not. No adultery condoned here. Okay, TJ,
Look at the two married guys clenching up when you said that. I'm watching on the stream.
I threw that in there. Like I saw the same. I was like, whoa.
Okay, TJ. So I wanted to kind of get into that because you are an Ohio guy. I'm even new to the show, and I know of your love for Stipe. Obviously, you've spent some time with the guy. You're from the same place. That is extremely cool as a dude from Canada who is extremely isolated from professional athletes. I think that's fantastic. But I think like this is a really interesting fight. Stipe is 42 years old, hasn't fought in like 3.5 years. Of course, widely considered the heavyweight GOAT. And then you've got Jon Jones, also hasn't fought in over 1.5 years. And we've only seen him in the ring for like 2 minutes at heavyweight. So I think there's a lot of unknowns here, despite the lean towards Jon Jones. So why don't you talk a little bit about that Stipe love and maybe whether that's still how you're betting or not, what the avenues could be for Stipe?
So my biggest problem with this fight, and let's get this out of the way, the line on the fight is currently Jon Jones minus 625. Okay, I understand him being favored. I understand him being the 2-1, 3-1 favorite. I mean, that's a large favorite. But you start talking about over 6-1, and every narrative out there trying to poke holes in Stipe, guess what? It applies to Jon Jones too. Oh, he's had this layoff. He's so old. Okay, let's look at it. Stipe, last 5 fights. You have to go back 5 fights. January 2018. Jon Jones, you go back 5 fights, you're going farther back to July of 2017. Before that heavyweight debut, it was over 3 years in between his fights. And let's be honest, Scott already brought this up. He lost a scorecard to one-legged Maheda. I'm sorry, I gave him way too much credit. Zero-legged Maheda. He freaking blew out both knees in the first round and took a scorecard from Jones. Reyes, I mean, the more people I truly believe more people think Reyes won that fight than Jones. And I mean, it's a toss-up. Could have gone either way. So what has this guy actually done in the last 5 years? The corpse of Gustafsson, Anthony Smith. I mean, these are not top of the division guys. So we thought we were going to get some real information on what Jones would look like on the move to heavyweight. We didn't. Cyril Gahn was a deer in headlights, super green grappler in comparison to top level MMA fighters, and it showed. I mean, he just came out there, pulled the biggest stunt anyone would ever put out there. Jon Jones has now landed, 6 strikes at heavyweight? And we just truly don't know if we're going to get the true dominant things that he did at light heavyweight in the heavyweight division. Is he going to have power? Is he going to have a chin? I mean, Jon Jones never loved to get hit, let's be honest. He'd rather have a 5-round touch from distance than do anything exciting, at least in this, not recent, super recent, this last 7 years or so. So I'm looking at Stipe, and it's like, if he is 80% of himself and he's going to come forward willing to take 2 to give 1, starts ripping the body, starts making Jones not want to be in there, trying to pull that quit out of him, I think there's a chance. I mean, I think there's a very real chance. Stipe will have been training as hard as he possibly can. He said his cardio is as good as it's going to get at 42. I mean, and that may have sounded bad, but he said he put his cardio at the max it can be. So I don't know. Stipe, bigger fighter than than Jones has ever fought. Willing to box. I don't know that Jones is going to even try or have success in the wrestling department. So I think we could have a striking fight. You look at the betting line, the odds makers believe that this fight is going to go over 2.5 rounds because that's where it's set at. I believe the over was the minus figure. I could be wrong on that. But either way, it was tight. So we're looking at a 2.5 total. We're not looking at a 1.5 total. This fight is expected to take place with some real activity, and we haven't seen that from Jones. And I think we have an insane pricing situation where I think it's more likely, again, that Jones wins. But the value side is 1,000,000,000% on the Stipe side. And that gives me a segue. I have a overall betting stat for everybody. And this is courtesy of good guy John Kelly on Twitter. He posted this for us. Since August 1st, favorites in the UFC are an insane 115-37. This translates to a 6.7% ROI if you bet all of those favorites. Wow. Less than 7% at 115-37. This is exactly why we are always chasing these plus figures, always trying to find these dogs. There is no long-term success just pounding chalk in MMA. So what do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I mean, this is a rule I said I had, right? Where especially for main cards, way more so than undercards, always betting heavy dogs. It worked for us with Strickland. It worked with us with the pink-haired weirdo. It worked with us many times over. And so for months now, I've been viewing this fight as basically Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson, where, Stipe is dead. He's 42 years old. But I'm looking at this plus 45 figure, and I'm sort of falling in love with the devil's advocate argument, which is a lot of what TJ just said. It starts and ends with, I think he's overhyped. He's very obsessive about his legacy, and he has good branding and PR for that, but I don't think he's the GOAT. And a lot of the issues with people bring up with Stipe can just be just as easily applied to John, just as TJ said. If we say he lost the Dominic Reyes fight, which he did, then both Stipe and Jon Jones are 1-1 since 2020. And now remember, like, who's the healthier fighter? We know who the older fighter is, but who's the healthier fighter? Jon Jones is coming off of injury. We don't know how that's affecting him. He himself has said, I'm healed enough, but not as strong. And we know he struggles to put on weight. He might be skinnier now. That shoulder might still be bothering him. He's an entirely different weight class to the one he dominated in. He can't bully Stipe, I don't think, in the same way he bullied a lot of the other guys. Stipe is old. Yes, he's very old, but heavyweights age more gracefully. And you break down the fight. What are the real actual advantages in this fight? Stipe, I think, is the better boxer. He's the only one in this fight with KO power, well, at least one shot KO power, or excluding elbows. We've seen Stipe against a better wrestler, or at least a very elite wrestler. And so what does it come down to? Leg kicks? How does Stipe do against leg kicks? That's a question I don't know the answer to. And then it's the ground and pound, which is a big concern, but it's only a factor if you can get Stipe on the ground. And I don't know how many times I've seen that. And so we're left with, I'll let you break that down, Stefan. That's your bread and butter, or you, TJ. But imagine 4 years ago, I told you could bet Stipe at these odds against a guy with only one win at heavyweight. Like, your mind would be blown. How is that even possible for the greatest heavyweight ever? And so my question to you, Stefan, because I feel like you kind of struggle with the betting odds aspect, where you're just like, oh no, John's is probably going to win. But like, my question is, if they fought 10 times, how many times would Stipe win? Because the implied odds are Stipe wins less than 2 out of the 10 times, 17.5% of the time. So 17.5 out of 100. And so I love those odds personally. I'm going to be betting Stipe.
And Stefan, let me make this a two-pronged question for you. So exactly what Scott asked, but I'm also going to throw in, this fight was supposed to happen last year. Jones tore his pec wrestling. And if you could just add in what physiologically might cause an injury like that for Jon Jones, I would like to know what you think about that.
I mean, well, two of the very most common like injuries when it comes to what's any type of performance enhancers are bicep tears and pectoral tears. But those are also
there we go, bingo.
But those are also two of the most common. I mean, pectoral tears is one of the most common injuries for like wrestling in general. It's like, so it's like it could be a combination of both, but it could just be like just the wrestling. At the end of the day, it could be that as well too.
And don't forget rampant steroid use, right? Like, if you're not on it, like if you're on steroids, it's an advantage. But then if you're removed from steroids for years, that's a disadvantage, right? Because it tanks your natural testosterone production.
That means that's if you're not running a cycle properly. If you're on the proper estrogen blockers and then get off at the right time, then you're not gonna have that serious hormonal dip. But like if you don't do that and like are a novice at taking that, then yeah, absolutely you have a problem. But that's what estrogen blockers are for. To like try and exactly block that estrogen.
So let's say John used steroids and he used it under.
Let's just say his brothers both pop for performance enhancing drugs. 2 people in his family have, and he's popped for multiple times. It's not like a maybe. Like let's be honest here. Like, dude, like it'd be one thing if like maybe John has shitty luck, but when both his brothers have also popped performance enhancing drugs,
definitely
get the fuck out of here. Like you know what's up.
So let's say he used it, but he used it perfectly under perfect supervision. But he's now hasn't been on steroids for 10 years. You don't think there's any chance the previous steroid use affects him now? Like tinier testicles?
I think that question's flawed because if he was using it proper for 10 years, he'd be still using it now.
Yeah, but he's not. That's what I'm saying. Well, you never know without USADA anymore.
Did you see that last? I forget his name, but that last guy at the weigh-ins with all the acne on him, and his chaps was like jumping out of his neck.
Or even look at recent pictures of Chandler.
Yeah, like come on. And also remember when Jon Jones had a drug tester come to his house after a night of partying, he said people die for like, disturbing me this early in the morning. So he's really hostile towards drug testers as well too, you know, that he somehow got off on, you know what I mean? That man's got a great look or a great lawyer. Just wanted to
but so original question, Stefan. If they fought 10 times, how many times would Stipe win?
Now, like that's just so hard to tell because we haven't seen Stipe. Like this is 42-year-old Stipe.
We haven't seen John either, though.
But he at least fought a year ago. You know, Stipe hasn't fought in 4 years. You know what I mean? I don't
Yeah,
even
but
know what he moves like anymore. Like, you know what I
What if
mean?
so? What if
He
he
could age
is
like
like?
Glover. Like, no, he could be aging like Glover, like phenomenally, or like Jan Blachowicz, or he could be aging like Verdum. You know what I mean? Like
I've seen videos of him limping around that made me squeamish.
What if he's like Cormier 3 and Ngannou 2 levels, like right towards his last couple of fights,
okay.
where he did wobble Francis in that fight before he got absolutely nuked. So what if Stipe is like not falling off that 4 years worth of fall off, if that makes sense?
I think they probably go like even, like 5-5, like maybe 6-4 Stipe. Like just because John's cardio, like most people when they go up a weight class and they haven't been there, they don't fight for 5 rounds the same. A perfect example is Luke Rockhold versus Jan Blachowicz. Luke Rockhold is known for being able to fight 5 rounds phenomenally, and he cut a shit ton of weight to go down to 85. As soon as he tried to bulk up to go to 205, and the X weight, he couldn't go around in half. So so like when you start putting on more weight, your cardiovascular system isn't used to carrying the extra weight. John's body is conditioned to fight 5 rounds when his adrenaline. Remember, like he does this shit in training, but on fight night, you got the adrenaline, you got the emotions, you got all these other factors that his body is only used to carrying a 205-pound Jon Jones. Like he's used to handling that and all those emotions and everything at night. Once you add on 20, 30 extra pounds, you think he's really going to be going like that well? And whenever Jon Jones goes 5 rounds, he always takes he loses 2 rounds in the middle. You know what I mean? It's not like he's fighting hard for the entire 5 rounds. So, and even when he used to fight hard for the entire the entire fight. When he first started, he was like gassing out in the third round against people like Stephen Bonner way back in the day. So he better learn to pace himself throughout the fight. But whenever Jon Jones hits the gas for the entire time, like he gasses out. So now, unless he's on that EPO, you know what I mean? Like who knows? Like who knows if John's any type of blood doping, get the cardio up. But if he's not, like then it's gonna be tougher. Like let's keep it real. John's using every advantage he can right now. He's
Oh,
he's
speaking of which, he fucking got Dana to switch back to the old gloves for him.
Yeah,
I
I
hate,
think
I hate this guy so
I don't
much.
even
that
know
was
if that's because
insane.
of Jones. That might just be because the
No, Jones
knockout
basically
percentage.
said it.
Well,
Jones
yeah.
basically said today in the press conference, he complained to Dana about it, and he was grateful for them to. And I think it's only some of the fighters. I think it's only like some of the old fighters,
Veteran
older
fighters,
fighters.
yeah, because Hunter Campbell said because there's so many veterans
Right.
on this card that they're going to go back to the old gloves, which is horse shit in my
Hey, let's be
opinion.
honest.
I
Though.
mean,
Let's
the
be
old
honest.
gloves had
Knockouts are
a higher
down,
knockout
and
percentage, though.
I've not heard anyone say a good word about the new gloves. No one.
Yeah,
Fair enough,
everybody.
but
Yeah, and on top of that, like the knockouts have gone down like drastically as soon as he
Yeah.
got these new
Hey,
gloves.
maybe
And
this backfires on John and Stipe knocks him out. But I didn't want to gloss over your answer, Stefan. So you said if, assuming Stipe's not fully cooked, you had it 60-40 in Stipe's favor?
yeah,
Okay,
especially with
because
Jones being unknown at heavyweight.
betting odds are basically worse than 20% for Stipe
I
to
mean,
win.
that makes sense just because because Stipe
think so
doesn't have
too.
any wins over anybody on the roster right now. So it's just like hasn't fought in a very long time. And there's like on one hand you can be like he's rested up this entire time, has like had time to handle any niggling injuries. So it could be that, or he comes with crazy rust. I think it might be the former before the latter because he had time to heal the injuries. Heavyweights, Stipe wasn't the fastest guy either. He didn't really fight off reaction times. He fought behind a jab and like heavy hands and like a good chin. All those things.
Jones isn't really fast either.
Yeah,
So
he does not. He doesn't telegraph his punches. That's what makes him reach a target. So like it's not that he's fast, but he's got really good precision with how he throws his strikes. But that's why he doesn't have like power because he never overextends it. He shoots it right from the hip. So it's all his fast touches his target, but it's not gonna punch through the guy. You'll never see John throw his entire hips until he punch. You'll never see it.
So I'm going to jump in here, fellas, and kind of summarize a little bit and maybe kind of bring us to the finish line on this fight here, because I think it's an interesting fight here. I think, Scott, you were talking about, there's a rainbow out the window, just in case you guys wanted to know that. It's pretty.
Nice.
So you were talking. You're a squirrel.
Stipe is going to win for guaranteed now. It's a
Yeah,
sign.
that's a
We're
fucking
both-
sign.
we're
That
both
is a
spoken.
sign, boys. Yeah. So, you were talking about kind of the differences in between these guys and what they have over each other, and I think Jon Jones is a much more dynamic finisher. I think when you see Stipe finish, he's hitting that right hand. When you see Jon Jones finish, it's kind of in a multitude of ways. Definitely invite you guys to jump in here because longer history in the game than myself, but I really think from what I've been watching, like those body shots that you were talking about, TJ, I think that was you mentioned it. Those Stipe body shots in the second Cormier fight are what turned the table and won him that fight. And I think he could do that against Jon Jones. The way that he throws those things, it feels like they would just go through somebody like me. And so I can't imagine what that feels like when he is unloading. And so if he can get a few of those in a row, I think that could be a ticket for him. I do think Jon Jones is going to potentially go to the wrestling because he might get hit by some of those shots and he might not want any of that Stipe smoke. So I guess what I'm saying here is I still think Jon Jones is going to win because of the diversity in his game, but I do like Stipe's avenues if he can get in kind of tight. It just depends if Jon Jones is going to let him get in there because Jon Jones is pretty good in the clinch too, but I don't think he's going to want to feel that clinch strength from a true heavyweight as opposed to a light heavyweight like he has in the past. So invite some thoughts on that one. And then I want to get into like exactly how we think this is going to go in the official pod pick.
My quick retort on Jones being a more dynamic finisher. If the overturned Cormier finish is thrown out, in the last 11 years, here is a list of both of his finishes in 11 years. Cyril Gahn and the corpse of Gustafsson.
Wait, time out. How could the it was not the corpse of Gustafsson.
It wasn't at the time.
Gustafsson had won against Jan Bokovic and Glover Teixeira before he fought Jon Jones. Before that, he lost to Anthony Johnson and Daniel Cormier. So he loses to probably one of the hardest hitting light heavyweights ever on the feet and the champ Daniel Cormier, and then he beats two future champs and then fights Jones again. Far from the corpse.
Okay,
Far from it.
so let's call that one legitimate finish in 11 years.
I mean, 11 years is to 2013, right? So he has Chael Sonnen,
Yeah, you have to go back to Chael.
Gustafsson, and Gahn. That's not bad. I mean,
While
lads,
he
this
hasn't
pretty bad.
finished,
That's pretty
though,
bad.
I think he has more avenues to finish, right? Like we've seen a lot more diverse finishing skill from him.
You're saying he's the well-rounded fighter, which is probably true.
Yeah,
I don't
there's
think
no
he is
question in this fight.
well-rounded.
It's on the Jones side, 1,000%.
I mean,
You know,
we're not gonna forget like, Jones. I think has like might have the most submission wins when it comes to like in light heavyweight history when it comes to like title fights. So like it's not like he isn't a good grappler either. He's got a fantastic what's it called guillotine as well. Like he still has like a bunch of weapons, and like his leg kicks are going to give Stipe a problem. Stipe stands in a way that like leaves him susceptible to like leg kicks. Unfortunately, that's like one of Jones' avenues to win probably.
That's what I wanted to ask about. How has Stipe handled leg kicks in the past? Have we ever seen him up against like an elite leg kicker?
Verdum got his leg, didn't he? Verdum got his leg really bad. Then Stipe just said, fuck it, and killed him, I think.
Yes.
Legit. He's like, fuck that. I'm not taking it. I'm going to come forward, and he's dead.
Stipe was on his bike against Verdum. That was a move.
Yeah, no. Verdum tried to run at him, and Stipe
I remember that.
Walked backwards and landed like a phenomenal right hand.
Which is crazy. One of the craziest knockouts.
Oh,
and
yeah. Just like
Verdum ran at him, like just running with his chin up, throwing punches. And Verdum showed a phenomenal jab in the Kane fight. So it's just like, what happened? Like, he threw all caution to win, like, paid for it dearly.
And TJ, sorry, I wasn't trying to cut you off there, but I did watch some Stipe last night, and there was one of those fights in that range of the Verdum fight where Stipe's leg got tore up pretty early. Might have been JDS, and Stipe still just deaded him. So
yeah,
I think he can deal with that, but it's going to bring more urgency, right? He's not going to be able to be as patient, I guess, or maybe that's not his tendency when his leg is hurt, not that he's not able to do it.
I think it really comes down to John's cardio, like at heavyweight. It's like if he can carry the weight well, like he might be able to, and like he might be able to maybe like win the first few rounds. And Stipe like just really depends like how fast he is, you know. But if he's really aged that much, but if he's the regular Stipe, still punching like Cormier, like he was against Cormier, like you said, those body shots will be like serious trouble for Jon Jones, because like those Stipe's got power and like fantastic boxing, and John, one of his biggest holes in his striking is his boxing defense. So he gets hit with people who can throw fluid combinations, and Stipe works well behind his jab, so like he might give John a couple problems on the feet.
And not to oversimplify, I think for Stipe to oversimplify it, and there is more to it, but I think he's got to be all the way in or all the way out, stay out of kicking range. And if you're all the way in, accept that you'll be in the clinch, accept that you'll have the strength to get out of the clinch, no matter how good Jones is. And he is incredibly good in the clinch, don't get me wrong. But just stay out of kicking range. I think you're in more danger there than you are if you get put against the fence.
Okay, fellas. So TJ, you've already told us that the betting is we want that to go towards Stipe. It's just the no-brainer pick. You're not going to be putting money lines on Jon Jones because you're not going to be making profit by doing that. With that, and honestly, fellas, what I've heard on this show is a lot more Stipe optimism than I've heard on any other show. So the official GogoPoda pick for UFC 309, not only on the betting side, but on the pick side, the Cleveland boy, TJ, Stipe Miocic. I will note he got some of those fresh new shorts of his own as well. They're handing those things out like Oprah at this point, but that's okay because Stipes are sick with kind of the all-black Croatian flag. So that is the official GogoPoda pick, Stipe Miocic, with the upset, becoming the heavyweight champion. I do have to ask one more question on these guys. No matter who wins, do we think either of these guys fight again? Jon Jones had some big comments on Tom Asshole Pinal today, according to Jon Jones. Called him an asshole and really kind of dug in on his character, which I thought was very interesting. Scott, what's your thoughts on whether they fight again? Stipe is probably a no, but like even Jon.
Is Jon Jones going to fight again? Yeah, I think if this is a decisive victory, which is kind of how everyone's predicting it goes, or an easy win, I think we do see him against Alex, in which he uses his elite grappling, wrestling, takes him down, which is Alex's weakness, and wins that, and then rides off to the sunset. If it's a close fight, I think he's done. I think Stipe is probably done no matter what, and just Tom is so shit out of luck because Jon is very afraid of him, and Stipe is too old. That's what I think.
Love it. Love it. I think I'm right in that same boat as you. Anybody differ from that?
Honestly, I can kind of see where Jones is coming from not fighting Aspinall.
Yeah.
Only because Jon wants to fight Alex Pereira, Francis Ngannou, because that will be the biggest fight as possible. And it's shitty to make to avoid Tom like that. It really is. Tom should be the guy fighting him. But if this is my last fight personally, and the well's about to dry up, I'm trying to get as much money as possible on my last fight. Like I'm not gonna have this be able to do this anymore. So I get what he's doing. It's not fair to Tom. It's shitty that the UFC indulges this as well. But I understand where like Jon's come from. Like he just fought Gon. Like this is like the UK's version of Gon in a sense. A bit better, don't get me wrong, but like he's the new up and coming guy with a country with only one country behind him. At least Alex Pereira, he's like got a way bigger following, and like beating Gon like didn't do much for Jon's profile. Like I think you have more Twitter followers than Tom Aspinall, Scott. You know what I mean? I'm not even joking. Like last time I checked, you did. Maybe that's changed recently, but like so I can see why Jones like like fuck doing that. You know what I mean? But
it all comes down to the legacy. Like he's not going to fight someone he's a dog in, and he would be a dog against Aspinall. He would be a dog against Ngannou. That's why he ducked both of them. He'd be a heavy favorite against Alex, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think so.
I hope Stipe knocks him out.
If Stipe wins, he'll fight Tom for sure. He'll take the L if he has to. If he loses, probably retires. If Jones loses, he'll probably cry and then ultimately retire. If Jones wins, he'll hold up the division for 2 more years if he can, just trying to angle for an Alex fight.
That's a beautiful, beautiful call. What a stick it to Jones moment for Stipe to be like, fuck it, let's go, Tom. I love that. I really like that. I actually think ultimately this is kind of the UFC's fault because much like Ngannou, throw enough money at it and you can fix the problem. They have the money to do it. They just don't want to do it. I think if you paid Jon enough, he would fight Tom Aspinall probably, but very interesting to develop. And we have a fight to go down before that happens. So we are excited for that main event, but let's get into the co-main, fellas. Michael Chandler versus Charles Oliveira. We got a big rematch here. Another one that kind of, I didn't necessarily see this one coming, so maybe we didn't necessarily ask for it, but I'm excited for it. I think it could be a treat. The first one absolutely was. If you recall, Chucky Olives took the win by second round TKO. Very exciting. Oliveira got dropped in the first round. Michael Chandler almost finished it there. He talked ad nauseum about how close the referee was to stopping it and how close he was to his dreams, but nonetheless, Oliveira came back and got that win, and it was a great fight. So I guess, Stefan, let's start with you. Does anything tell you that this fight's going to go differently than that first one?
See, that's like an interesting question. If it might go exactly the same, but if it does go exactly the same, like the result could be different because Charles got rocked badly. It's like if the fight goes exactly and Michael lands a big one on Charles, and this time Charles doesn't survive, and that's a win for Mike, you know? So it's just like Mike tends to land big punches on people. He landed a huge one on Poirier, rocked him badly. I think he landed pretty big shots on Justin Gaethje as well. So it's just like it's whether or not Chandler will land again. There's a very good chance of it because Oliveira is really hittable. Like everybody knocks him down, bro. And like from Justin Gaethje to Dustin Poirier to Islam Makhachev to like Michael Chandler. You know what I mean? Like all these guys are dropping him. So should they rematch again? That's a risky fight because like Michael does have power. And if not, then like Charles might drop him. You know what I mean? It's another fight where like someone's getting finished most likely, and it could go either way. I think it's gonna be Charles again, but Michael really could just land a big overhand right because Mike stopped Dan Hooker. Like I don't know if anybody has seen the Edson Barbosa fight. Dan Hooker is not an easy man to stop.
Mm-hmm.
Like he can take some punishment. So like
I'm out here reporting a murder because that's what that was.
Yeah, bro. How did he stay standing for so long? That fight was crazy. Hooker, a glutton for punishment. That last body shot, he's crumpled like at the end of it. So yeah, Dan Hooker can take some punishment. It took 3 rounds of a schlecking, to like really get put down. So like maybe so if Chandler can stop that guy, like he has crazy power, he could land again. Like who knows? Like is this another one toss up? Either guy could land. So like yeah, it could go either way. I don't know who's going to win it. I'm gonna go with Oliveira, but I easily Chandler could just like land some boom. And like that overhand when the shorter guy is there for the overhand, it just lines up perfect, the angles. So yeah.
Yeah, I like that too. I'm probably leaning towards Oliveira as well, just because of the crazy nature of Michael Chandler's fight style, and again, some of that diversity in finishing that Oliveira can bring, because he can finish it on the feet, and of course, he is the best submission artist the UFC has ever seen. So TJ, Oliveira is a -245 favorite. Chandler comes back as a +200 dog. We were talking about those favorites previously in those like crazy situations like we see with Jon Jones. Is this a dog that you would see just betting straight up, or how would you attack this one, and how do you see this fight going?
So yeah, I think this is a very fair price as far as likelihood of outcomes go. The thing is with Chandler, I think if he's been doing it correctly, he should be working cardio because the skill set's already there. The danger's already there, everything he presents. That said, I don't think much will change. I think he goes out there, tries to empty the tank, tries to get the one back that got away. And in fairness, a different referee and a different night, he would have won that first fight. Not saying should have, but certainly could have. So I think we're going to see Chandler be the more dangerous fighter in round one. He's going to have that durability until the gas tank runs out. But inevitably, I do think the gas tank will run out if he doesn't get that finish. So we're going to see Chandler empty the tank as long as the tank lasts again. And round one is going to be true danger for Oliveira. So now, do I want to bet a +200 underdog that probably has a 4 to 7 minute tank? No, because I know the path to victory, and I know he's not going to submit Charles Oliveira. So now we look at the knockout prop. You look at a round 1 knockout for Chandler, you're getting plus 900 on the man's essential only path to victory in this fight. So I don't know. If the cardio is better, maybe there's different paths. Maybe he could win a decision. Maybe the difference with the Gaethje fight. So I'm thinking of the Chandler Gaethje fight that went to decision. I don't think we're going to see just the stand-up that took place in that fight. It's going to be a true mixed martial arts fight. I think Charles will make sure there's at least some clinch grappling exchanges. So I think that'll drain the tank if and when this fight plays out into the second round. So the Chandler gas tank is the big question mark, but I do think he is the more dangerous fighter round 1. And at 9-1, that's exactly where I'll be attacking it. Granted, not heavy, but that's where the value lies.
Nice little sprinkle there on Chandler by KO. Scott, how about you? How do you see this one playing out? Are you excited for it?
Yeah. So you know me and TJ too is we're always looking to bet dogs when we can get them. And when I can make a devil's advocate argument that I fall in love with, I get really excited. And I was watching the interview Chandler with Ariel Helwani, and it was a weird interview. He sort of intimated that he cheated on his wife during the camp of his last fight. I wouldn't make speculation like that unless it was warranted. Like, look it up, watch it. I'm sure the clip is circulating. But he was saying it was like the worst camp of his life and all this other stuff. He also said the time off was a major blessing in disguise. He never had time off. He was always rushing from one camp to the next. And when you're doing that, you don't really get a chance to learn anything new. So he healed up. He corrected some issues. He got his mindset right. He said he's in the best shape of his life. He looks like he's in the best shape of his life. But the biggest thing to me, and you know I'm a big sports psychology guy. I think that's so real. I think in this sport, it's the most important of any sport. And he admitted to Ariel Helwani that he had some sort of imposter syndrome. You know, maybe because he was a walk-on, everyone told him he never belonged. He never really entertained the possibility that he could actually be the best fighter in the UFC, the number 1 guy. But he said during this time off, his mindset has completely changed. I thought this was huge because this was always my suspicion. When you watched his interviews, you heard him call himself an entertainer. You didn't hear him call himself a fighter. And then when you watched his tape, it was exactly the same thing. It's like, this guy's a smart guy. Like, listen to his interviews. He's, he could be the next Tony Robbins, right? A smart guy, stupid fighter, stupid as fuck fighter. Why is he always doing stupid shit? And he's an elite wrestler. We know, like, elite wrestler, and he just never uses it. I've been saying for years, like, if he actually tries to win instead of just entertain the crowd, like, I don't know what his ceiling is. And so based off of all this, I was ready to, I don't know, place a half unit on Chandler. And then, of course, we see this picture. I don't know if you guys saw it, but I sent it to you guys, where he's on the plane coming here. He has this little sore on his bicep with like a red ring around it. The staff detectives are saying it's staph. And you know, my rule, as someone who almost died of MRSA, spent a week in the hospital, 6 weeks PICC line antibiotics, has been on staph antibiotics many times since. That is, every time we've ever heard a fighter talk about going into a fight with a staph infection, it's always the same thing. It's, I felt pretty good round 1. And then I get in there for round 2, 10 seconds pass, and it's like a pin drops and all the power is sucked out of my body and I die. And so with the stamina issues TJ just talked about, I can and could conscious put any money on Chandler. But if that wasn't the case, and maybe it's not staph, maybe it's something else. Maybe, who knows? Maybe it was someone with Photoshop duping me. I would have been really excited here.
I just want to add, Islam beat Dustin Poirier with staph. 5 rounds, and he finished in the 5th round. That just goes to show he's kind of a badass, a little bit different.
Built different.
Yeah, and I wonder if seeing pictures of the mats that the Dagestanis train on, I wonder if they just have like a built-up tolerance to staff. You know what I mean? It's like even if you're a veteran weed smoker, it takes you a while to get like a real good bake on. They see some staff and they're like, "Fuck that! It's got to be like a dollar-sized hole for me."
Dude,
to
it's like a
tear.
kiddie pool of Dagestani sweat. Ugh,
Yeah,
Oh,
so
totally.
disgusting.
That's
Slip and
they're-
slide on the mats with human sweat. Ugh.
Aren't
yeah,
they exposed to bear herpes by the time they're 8? So yeah.
they're also immune to it by the time they're 9. Oh man, yeah, I think all of that is really well said, gentlemen. This is going to be a pretty exciting fight, and I think the Chandler gas tank thing cannot be understated, because I think Charles's fight style kind of would lend itself to lasting a little bit longer, and because of Scott's insight into the staff recovery, we are going Charles Oliveira as the official pick. But then make sure, and TJ, I want to start making sure we put out a graphic of some of those bets too, because I really like diving into that and making sure we can put it out visually for the people. So a little sprinkle on that KO line for Michael Chandler. Speaking of big lines, one that you probably would not go into, the featured bout on this card is Bo Nickel versus the one and only Paul Krieg. Coming in, the Scottish Warrior, Mr. Braveheart himself. We haven't had the press conference or the ceremonials, but God, I hope he paints the face again. This one to me is kind of like the scorching prospect versus the fading mid-level name fight. You know what I mean? Bo Nickel's a minus 1,100 favorite on this fight. TJ, I think I saw minus 1,200 for a little bit yesterday. But I mean, the opening line was minus 1,000, so that's pretty wild. Pretty fair line, TJ, or would you say Mr. Paul Krieg's a little bit live here?
So I both think it's a fair line, and I think Paul Craig is live, because let's be honest here, Paul Craig is super unique and can end up beating anyone because of the danger in his guard. I'm pretty sure, I'm thinking about this, he's a middleweight now, and he's the only light heavyweight to have wins over Jamal Hill and Magomed Ankalaev. So that's just, that's just wild to think about. But then you think about other times where you have another true grappler that's keeping him on his back, and I'm pretty sure Jimmy Crute submitted him, and Crute got a fight recently, so I was like kind of happy to see that he'll be back. But yeah, man, Bo Nickel's going to do what he wants here, and if he's going to take the path of least resistance, he can just stand there and light Paul Craig up and on the feet. Bo is heavy-handed. He's getting better striking every fight. Paul Craig offers nothing in the stand-up. That's the problem. Like when we saw him fight Bahio, it's like, whoo, that was a massacre. And I think
almost embarrassing.
Yeah. I think Bo is heavier-handed than Caio is. So I think knockout is the outcome there. That price is only minus 150, which is, I say only with air quotes, because compared to minus 1,100, it becomes playable. But I also do think that Bo Nickel's grappling is at a level where, combined with the God level wrestling, he can stay safe should he decide to. But the path of least resistance is in the stand-up, and I think that's where he should keep it. Anybody think differently on that?
Yeah, I don't think differently on that. I think you're spot on. Like Paul Craig is a wrestler's like worst nightmare in some aspects, and like how he can just throw up a triangle from anywhere. Chael Sonnen is very lucky he never had to face Paul Craig in his career. Very fortunate. Chael Sonnen, I think, has the most losses via triangle choke. Like, if you look at the list of names to beat him via triangle, it's actually hilarious. Forrest Griffin has a triangle choke over Chael Sonnen, for example. Yeah, but Paul Craig,
Hail Mary is still freaking like one of the most insane moments in history. In fight
crazy if you saw that live. Like, geez. But yeah, so Paul Craig, he can really win via triangle. I think, like you said, Bo Nickel, good power on the feet. I think we see him trying to work that. We could see Bo Nickel's fight IQ and see if he wants to try and take Paul to the ground, if he takes a path of least resistance. And I think it'll be a good fight to see for Bo, because this is a step up in competition, a good name, and maybe Bo will be one step closer to his Hamza fight that he's been calling for.
Yeah, that's going to happen, and that's going to be incredible. I'm kind of in the same boat as you guys, except I hope he doesn't take the path of least resistance, because I think he can still win using his wrestling. And I mean, I would like to see that from like the chaos factor, because the scrambles would be great. Seeing Bo get into danger and having to get out of it would be awesome to see. And like you said, TJ, like that Ankalaev win for Paul Craig was with at 4:59 of the final round of that fight, after he was getting just beat up by Ankalaev. So Paul Craig can get it done at any given time, but I hope we see some scrambles on the ground. Scott, how do you think this one's going to play out? And then I'm going to get into the picks here.
Yeah, obviously, I think Bo Nickel wins easily. Insanely elite talent already. I would have him as a heavy favorite against any fighter outside the top 5 of the division right now. But I also have a rule to always bet extreme underdogs on main cards. I'm seeing 750 plus 700 plus 750 just about everywhere for Paul Craig. Crazier things have happened. The dude beat Magomed Ankalaev, right? We don't know if Bo Nickel's coming into the fight hurt or with the staph infection or what. He can get hurt dancing in the octagon before the fight starts. We've seen that. We could see something like Aspinall losing to Blades on a fluky thing. You just never know. So I don't know. I would put 0.1 unit on Paul Craig, and you make that bet. You're going to make it back plus some, the 6th time you make it. So that's my recommendation.
So I'm the opposite of recommending that, but let me take that a step further. So if Paul Craig, by a miracle, knocked the fighter down, and that fighter fell down and was holding up a sign that said, "You land one hammer fist, the referee will stop the fight," he's still going to jump armbar. So I think you play the plus 1200 submission line if you're going to do it. That's all.
Okay.
I did not know where you were going with that, and you went to a better place than I imagined, TJ. That was fantastic. So thank you. Oh, man, that was good. Okay, so I think it's safe to...
Can we take one moment and just recognize the greatest Paul Craig moment in an interview? And there have been many. But a reporter asked him when he was wearing a kilt one day, "What do you wear under the kilt?" And just stone face just looks up and says, "Me cook." So yeah,
that's why there's kind of like a sad element to this, right? Because seeing the demise of Paul Craig means we're not going to be seeing very much Paul Craig, so
if Paul Craig loses, he might be out the UFC
potentially. But I think
I don't know if I said it earlier, but how fucking funny would it be if like Stipe, I don't know, had a bad weight cut or had one of those injuries we were just talking about before the actual fight, and he can't fight, and then it's Jon Jones versus Tom Aspinall.
I don't think that would happen. I think John turns that down.
Yeah,
and I think they would be fucked, because Michael Chandler and Charles Oliveira would just have to be the main event. They would be really pissed off.
Elevate Marcin Tybura to further cement Jon Jones' legacy of beating cans at the most opportune time in recent years.
Yeah. Jon Jones, Marcin Tybura headlining. Man, that would be wild. Like, it would be crazy just to see that happen and see how it played out, because I think whether it was an injury or not, I think the UFC would be pissed about that. So I think it'd be interesting to see if Stipe even got another title shot, if he was the guy to fall out, and then what would happen if it was Jon Jones that fell out. Would be pretty cool. But I got to keep us moving here, fellas. I do have a bit of an out today. I do have to get the aforementioned kids. But the next fight on the docket is Viviane Araújo and Karine Silva. Silva comes in as a minus 258 favorite as I last saw it. I think it's a big spot for the ladies here. You love to kind of see that. I like that they put them on the main card, kept a Jim Miller type on that prelim card. Get the fans buzzing before they move into the main. Araújo is coming off a loss to Natalia Silva, so she gets another Silva on the back-to-back. Karine Silva is going for her 6th win in a row. 4 of those have been submissions. 3 in the first round, fellas. So to me, it looks like a little bit of a launch pad for Karine Silva. What are we thinking here, Stefan? Where do you think this fight goes? How do you think it's going to play out?
First, I just want to say Silva almost landed a GogoPoda in her career. Like,
goodness.
Yeah, she came. Wait, hold. Let me look over. On Dana White's Contenders against Hui Yan. I know I butchered that name. Well, I'm sorry. Hui, whatever your name is.
Yeah.
Yo, Karine Silva really almost got a GogoPoda. Like she was really applying it. So she has a very good guard off of her back. She's a very good finisher. You don't see that too often with like WMA fighters who like got finishes with like strikes and submissions. Like you normally get like a knockout artist or someone who's like very good submissions. But to be able to do both like at such a high level, like that's really impressive. So respect her. She's got 9 knockouts, 8 submissions, and only 1 decision. Like that's crazy, you know what I mean? Like, so there's a lot of hype behind her. One problem about Silva is like her takedown defense isn't really there, but she's got such an active guard off of her back that she doesn't really mind being taken down like that. The thing is against Arujo is this she's a very good jiu-jitsu practitioner and she's got good takedowns as well. So she could honestly lay on top of Silva and get a grind out a decision if like when it came down to takedowns. Her Arujo's striking is like leaves a little bit to be desired. She's been dropped a few times, but she's got go. But she's got a good chin. She continues to move forward. She's got heart. She's not just gonna give up if she gets dropped. And if you look at who she has been losing to, she's only really been losing to elite fighters. So this is a very big step up for Silva. We're gonna see like a lot about her. But I think Arujo matches up with her based off of the takedowns, and I think Arujo can probably avoid the submission and win the decision, like basically just grinding her out 15 minutes. So I'm going with Arujo for that one.
TJ, how about you? How do you see it playing out, and then where are you betting it?
So I'm actually the other way. I think poor Vivi ran into Natalia Silva. Now she gets the more difficult Silva. Karine is a freaking monster, man. I have never seen a gilly like hers in women's MMA. And I mean, I'm open to being wrong if we see my girl Tatiana Suarez start using it more because no one's gotten out of that. But Karine's the same way, man. That gilly is mean. I mean, that in and of itself is takedown defense. Like, who wants to put their neck there? It's crazy. But yeah, Vivi. So she got a finish in her UFC debut 5 years ago. In 10 fights since then, she is 5-5 in 10 decisions. So every single one has hit the scorecards. I might look at this fight to go to the decision. I think Silva. I think she probably edges the striking. I think the striking is going to be close, but I think she's actually the one that's more likely to offensively wrestle and the one more likely to have success. So I do lean towards her side. I think it's a very slight value on the betting line, not enough that I'm willing to lay over minus 250, but I am edging towards the Silva side. Any thoughts on this one, Scott?
Nope.
Very, very eloquently done, sir. No, I think that was, you guys kind of nailed it. And you guys know these fighters a little bit more than I do as well. I'm not too deep into the Arujo and the Silva game, but I will say, I would say for the official GogoPoda pick, we're going to go with Karine Silva as kind of that young up and comer who's trying to take the next step. I could see something in the like Jessica Andrade for her next if she wins this, as she tries to move up those rankings. And so I think that's where we're gonna go with the official GogoPoda fight pick.
Rose. It'll be Rose now, and it'll be great.
That was actually, I had an Andrade or Rose type fight, but I decided only to mention Andrade. Same page, TJ. Same page, my friend. Okay, so for the next fight and the main card opener, Scott, I'm going to have a name for you to pronounce here. So I'm going to give you the first guy.
We are ready. Everyone, brace yourself. It's going to be amazing.
Yeah, and if you have a drink in hand, be ready to put it back. So I'm going to give you one guy in this fight, although he does have an interesting name, Mauricio Hufi. So he is a Brazilian fighter, very, very, very exciting, and we'll talk about that in a sec. What is his opponent's name, first and last?
Well, I don't know who Mauricio Huffy is fighting, but Mauricio Ruffy is fighting James.
No, don't you do that. Don't you do that. That's Huffy.
You show some respect to Portuguese.
James Lalantop?
That's a double drink. That's a double drink. That's a double drink. It is pronounced Thomas Yontop.
Thomas?
You got set up, Scott.
Hummus.
Hummus? What was
Pretty much, yeah. Pretty much.
Thomas.
And last name? What was the last? One more time.
Hummus on top. Hummus
on
on top. That's a almost a silent double L right there, but you pronounce it like a Y.
On top.
Do you want the hummus on the bottom or?
I prefer
Nope,
my hummus
on
on
top.
Yeah, on top,
Wow.
on bottom.
That's a finish your beer. That's
Yeah.
fully
Yeah.
butchered.
Yeah, and if you want, have another one on us, the GoGoPoda.
Scott the Butcher Barrett. That would be my
Finish your
yeah,
UFC
that's your MMA nickname. Yeah, you might have something. You might have words with Brian Battle on that one though, so careful. But guys, I love Mauricio Hoofy. He is that Fighting Nerds guy on this card. They are on fire right now. This is his second scrap in the UFC. He had a really big knockout over Jamie Malarkey. Hit him with a flying knee and then finished him with punches. And I thought that was a really big debut fight because Malarkey is a seasoned UFC veteran. Oftentimes he's the nail and not the hammer, but still somebody who's been around, sniffed those top 15 rankings, and they put Hoofy right into that spot. And for Jon Top, it's his third UFC fight. He lost by a really nasty looking rear naked choke in his debut, and then lost to Slava Claus last time in a splitty. Pretty decent records on these guys. I think, again, much like Karine Silva, this is probably a bit of a launch pad for Hoofy. I see Jon Top being a bit of a punching bag for him because Hoofy has that dynamic striking ability. He had a really nice trip in that fight against Jamie Malarkey as well, where he did like kind of like a soccer back kick and took him down. So I think the dynamism is just going to be there. And what I saw from Jon Top is pretty much one-dimensional, kind of going to stand there and get hit, but definitely don't claim to be the expert, fellas. So Stefan, how do you see this one playing out?
I think you called it pretty well, to be honest. Mauricio Hoofy is Conor McGregor light. He's Conor McGregor's illegitimate. He's Conor McGregor's dad. Had a trip to Brazil one time that the missus had no clue about, and out pop Mauricio Hoofy, like honestly, because he fights exactly like McGregor, except he's right-handed, and boy, he's got a piston in that right hand. Great back in and out movement, like a good counter. Of course, he's very karate, so bladed stance leaves a chin up. You know, the holds are always going to be the holds with that type of style. But wow, he's got great power, and I think Jon Top, like you said, is just he's too rudimentary on the feet. Yeah, like I think unless Mauricio gets caught leaving his chin up, which always could happen, who knows? It's MMA, shit's crazy. But Hoofy's gonna tear this boy up. Like like it's gonna be like boom. It's gonna look like a Peyton Talbot fight. You know, like those two guys are fight very similarly, I believe. Just with the end now. Actually, Kyle Barao, he fights very similar to Hoofy as well. Cause Barao is a southpaw, you know. But yeah, I'm looking forward to this fight and another fight on the prelim.
All right.
Yeah, it's a great striker. Fantastic.
Yeah,
it's entertaining.
We're going to pick out those prelim fights in a sec, but TJ, I want you to kind of bounce off of that because Stefan's opinion of how this fight goes reflects perfectly to the betting lines, as Hoofy is a minus 800 favorite in this fight and Jon Top's a plus 550 dog. So do you dare throw a dog on the pile here, TJ?
Oh no, this poor dog is gonna have a rough night. So yeah. So obviously minus 800, we don't play. We start looking further. We look at the inside of the distance line. So now we're down to minus 175. I think that's a value, but still not good enough. So while I think Hoofy can hurt him, can do whatever he wants, he can easily submit a guy that's already been submitted in the UFC as easily as he can knock him out. Now, you go and look at the submission prop, we're at plus 800. So we're shifting from minus 800 to plus 800 just for the alternate method of finish. And there is also one other prop on this fight I'm looking at. Under 1.5 rounds, you're getting plus 135. So even if Hoofy takes a bad step, something goes wrong early in the fight, as long as the finish comes, you're cashing a plus figure.
Very nice. Very nice. Yeah, that's exactly where I would go. That is the show official pick. Scott, anything to add on that one with Mauricio Ruffy and Hummus on top?
Yeah, I talk about my rules, right? One of my rules is always bet on a fighting nerd or never bet against a fighting nerd. They're the new Dagestan. The stat might be a little off, but I believe they're
Don't you
16-0.
disrespect the nerds like that. Call them Dagestan. They're going to have more champs in a year than Dagestan has ever had. Stop it.
Wow. So here's the stat. I believe they're 16-0 since making their debut on the Contender Series 3 years ago. They have like a combined 44 fight MMA win streak, only 4 UFC fighters. And, maybe they just have like elite coaching and, film grinders and all that stuff. But I think it's so much funnier to just imagine these nerds with, in the lab cooking up like the most elite steroid infused with amphetamines and just going undetectable. I think that would be so much funnier. But yeah, I don't know what it is about the fighting nerds, but yeah, I can't bet against them.
Yeah, no, I'd be with you there. And they're an interesting team. I think like the owner of the Fighting Nerds team is also the owner of Karate Combat. He was on Helwani's show one time. Interesting dude. I can't even remember his name. Maybe I'll try and post it sometime or something. He is a very interesting dude to listen to. Highly recommend. Lots of energy. And yeah, he is not the coach or anything like that. I think he's like the owner and he does some training with them or something. But interesting team. And it's really cool to see a new team sweep the nation where we're not always talking about ATT and Killcliff and all of them all the time. We've got a new team that's on the scene. They got a really fun gimmick. And I think I can speak for all of us when I say that we're riding with the nerds here. So guys, I got to keep us moving here. I do have a bit of an out coming soon. So I got to say we are each going to pick one prelim fight we're super excited about. And then I'll give some final thoughts where TJ, you can get in some of those other bets that we haven't gotten to. And Stefan, if you have any thoughts on some fights that we haven't spoken about, please feel free. Scott, I'm going to start with you though. What is a fight on the prelims that you are excited for?
Oh, I yield the remainder of my time to TJ.
Okay, absolutely. TJ, give me a fight and then give us a bonus one on top for Scott.
Okay, so we definitely have to talk about Jim Miller and Damon Jackson. That'll be super fun, super grizzled vets. So we're still never going to trust Jim Miller's gas tank, but we're always going to love Jim Miller. Jackson is quite hittable. I think especially early in fights. Jim Miller round 1 KO plus 800. Now, if Jim Miller gasses, and we know what Damon Jackson does, he starts grappling. And while, Miller, man, I don't want to say this and have it sound like I'm throwing any shade whatsoever at Damon Jackson's jits because it's truly fantastic, but I would opt for Miller in a pure grappling match. You look at a round 3 sub for Jackson on a gassed Miller, that's plus 2,500. A round 2 sub for Jackson is plus 1,200. So there's some big figures to throw around here in potential outcomes. And I will jump over to one other fight on the early prelims. Mickey Gall is a minus 142 favorite over Brahimaj. And Brahimaj is just terrible. His output is 0. He's grapple or bust. And while Mickey Gall is a very flawed fighter, I don't think the true flaws are in his grappling game. And I think he's a pretty solid value at that price tag, even though it is a minus figure. And we've been preaching the opposite. Stefan, where are you at?
Yeah, so in regards to Mickey Gall fight, I could see Ramiz taking Mickey Gall down and holding him down just because Mickey Gall, I do not like him. I think he was brought in as a candidate to fight CM Punk. You know what I mean? He's one of Diego Sanchez's only wins late career. So it's just like we've seen the level that he's at. So I could see him, Mickey Gall, landing some really good punches on the feet for sure. But I could also see him take down and control fight the entire fight. So I don't know on that one, but I'm gonna go with Ramiz on it. But I can see, but yeah, that's where I'm going. But in terms of fights, I'm excited to see. I'm very much looking forward to Marcus McGee versus Jonathan Martinez. That fight's is gonna be fantastic. Martinez had actually decided to fight Aldo. You know what I mean? It wasn't no bullshit like Mario Batista. He came up short, but it was a good back and forth striking match. Marcus McGee is a prospect. That boy can strike. He's got fantastic in and out movement, counters. He's got solid power. This is a big step up for him in Martinez, but I can see Marcus landing some good strikes because every fight he's had in the UFC so far, he's clearly been the superior striker. So like, let's just see. I'm very excited to see how he deals with the kicks of Martinez, because if he can deal with the kicks of Martinez, we got a serious problem on our hands at featherweight, like a really big dark horse in the division. So I'm very excited for him.
Thing about McGee, the problem, he's already in his mid-30s. Like he's an old guy. Unfortunately, he came in very late. But the stylistic matchup for him is one that he can do well in, because he's willing to keep that pressure on and crash forward and take away at least the body kicking of Martinez. He's got to be careful with the legs. He could absolutely get his legs striped. And, Martinez's kicks, knees are absolutely dangerous. But I do think I agree with you. It's kind of more likely that the true pressure from McGee that will be constant. I think he's more likely to hit one home to end the fight than Martinez is, which is a big thing to say. So, that's going to be a fun fight. I can't wait for it.
Totally. McGee's a minus 135 favorite to Martinez at plus 114 as a dog. So pretty close one, really exciting. Yeah, I saw the same thing. The in and out movement and that boxing of McGee is deadly. And we saw Martinez can be hit in that Aldo fight. So get in, punch him, and I think McGee could take that one home. Guys, a fight that I am really looking forward to is all the way on the early prelims. The second fight of the night, Basil Hafez versus Oban Elliott. Oban Elliott's a really fun prospect coming out of Cage Warriors. He was a huge stud in that organization, and they often feed their fighters into the UFC. He is called the Welsh Gangster, which I also like. Huge Chael Sonnen fan. So we could see some fireworks on the mic from Oban Elliott, which I really like. Won both of his UFC fights. And then you look at Basil Hafez. He's a plus 225 dog in this fight. I'm definitely not the betting guy, but I really think that line should be a lot closer, because he beat Mickey Gall in the last fight that he had. But then if you remember, his UFC debut was ultra short notice against Jack Della Maddalena, and he gave JDM a fight in that one. So I think Hafez maybe doesn't win against Oban Elliott, but I think this line should be closer. And I think this is going to be a pretty fun strike with some two pretty experienced guys early on those prelims. So I think it's going to be a good way to kind of get the juices flowing there. That's one of mine. So some other ones here, and boys, I'm going to let you chime in. We got Veronica Hardy and Eduarda Maura opening up the early prelims. Marcin Tybura faces Jonata Diniz. Diniz was scheduled to fight Derek Lewis a couple weeks ago, but Lewis fell out day of, and so Diniz got rebooked against Tybura, a higher-ranked opponent as well, so it worked out well for him. David Onama, his opponent was supposed to be Lucas Almeida. He's been replaced by Roberto Romero. I didn't see any lines on this one.
I believe that fight's off.
The whole fight's off. Okay,
Yeah,
I saw
as far as
Roberto
I know.
Romero. Shit. Okay, I saw the
really?
potential replacement. Damn. Onama's a fun guy to watch, that's for sure. Weidman against Eric Anders. Thought that was really weird matchmaking, because I would have seen it as the guy going against Weidman might be somebody who you could see UFC trying to promote a little harder, but I don't see them doing that with Anders off a win against Weidman necessarily. It is good for Weidman to get some reps in this fight, but I don't really know what he's fighting for either. So TJ, why don't you come in with thoughts on the Weidman fight, and then if there's any other bets that we missed that you want to share with the people before I ride this bad boy out.
All right, firing it up. As far as Weidman goes, the thing about Anders is he's a worse fighter, and I think he's just as close to the end as Weidman is. I think the Anders attempting to clinch, wrestle, bully, even though he is a physical fighter, that is just not a recipe to beating Chris Weidman. You got to crack him, and I don't know. I don't think he's accurate. I don't think he's got the volume. I actually like Weidman at a plus figure there. Granted, it's a very tiny plus figure. Anders is minus 122 when we started recording this pod. Tybura and Diniz. So Diniz was a favorite against Derek Lewis, and this will tell you everything you need to know about his skill set. Now Tybura is a minus 148 favorite. So Diniz, he needs a fight, stand and bang. That's what he needs. Now Tybura, he's had plenty of ground finishes in the octagon, and he very well could get another one. This isn't one I'm going after. We don't have props on this fight. I'm sure they're going to be very in line with skill sets when they come out. So I'm just going to be a fun fight I'm going to watch. I'm with you on Hafez being a value. That should probably be closer to a pick and fight. And I like Open Elliott, don't get me wrong here, but Hafez is a finished product. He's very experienced, and I mean, he could get a bomb home. As much as we don't like Mickey Gall, he's got a chin, and man, Hafez cracked him in that last fight. In the opening fight of the night, Veronica Hardy, Eduarda Mora. Mora's up a weight class, hoping her cardio gets better. She is not a striker. She is a wrestler. Hardy has great submissions off her back. So it's going to be fun to see how that one plays out. But with Hardy being a minus 148 favorite and essentially knowing that Mara is going to have at least 2 rounds of top control time, no matter how the fight plays out, I'm going to want the plus figure in that one.
Stefan, final thoughts, my man.
Yeah, I'm with TJ on this one. I think Bato is like you guys basically hit the nail on the head. He's like a really good live dog in the fight. Good power in his hands, solid wrestling as well. Like he can do well. On the Jonathan Diaz fight, he has no takedown defense whatsoever. He's got like really bad takedown defense. This is like a really good style matchup for Tiberia. But Denise has decent power and like good strike on feet. It's such a shame Derek Lewis isn't gonna fight him, but he got a much tougher matchup for him. I see Tiberia being like the heavy favorite. Like it's going to be very difficult for him. And I think if the Onama fight ends up going through with it, I don't think Roberto Romero has the same amount of experience to be really taking a fight on short notice or really do damage against against Onama like that. Like I don't think Romero even has like crazy power like that on the feet. So it's like you have to win 15 minutes the entire fight on short notice. Like good luck, you know what I mean? But so it's gonna be a tougher fight for him. So that's why I have Onama winning it. But good luck good on him for taking the fight if he does go through with it.
I'm seeing that fight still on per Tapology, but we will check it out. I didn't see any odds for it anyway. Scott, I'm going to put you a little bit on the spot here with what we talked about, and with you being the former host of this show, I've been given the official fight picks. I would like to introduce a bit of a new wrinkle and have an official GogoPoda fight of the night pick. So if you want to summarize kind of your vibes or kind of wrap up this card here and then give us your official fight of the night pick, I will come in after that and I will take us home.
I think that's really tough for this card, right? Like Bo Nickel's one-sided, Huffy's one-sided. Betting odds say Jon Jones, Stipe is one-sided. So I feel like you got to go Chandler Oliveira.
Obviously, that's the fight of the night. Are you serious? You saw the last one? Like he hits 2 serious knockdowns and like in 2 you had a round and like 10 seconds of a fight, and it was still memorable. You know what I mean? Like
okay, but let's say the staff thesis was right, and the human backpack chokes him out in round 1. Then what is the fight of the night?
I think it's Martinez McGee.
Boom, jinx.
Wow.
Yeah, that's gonna be a fun stand and bang fight. So I think all of this is to say that there's going to be a lot of good fights on this UFC 309 card, gentlemen. Going to be fun to watch, going to be fun in the group chat with you boys, that's for sure. Make sure you follow us on x.com, where we'll be doing some tweeting during the event. Of course, we like to get in there, mix it up with the people, so feel free to comment and get in the chat with us there. Please make sure you follow us on Instagram. Personally, I have fun making the graphics over there. It's been a good time, and I think we're doing some cool stuff. And then subscribe to that YouTube channel. It's really cool to see the reception. We got some good views on the first episode, and we want to see that continue to grow. So yeah, I am Trav, hosting this show. I am with Scott Barrett, Stefan Cox, and TJ Calkins. Thank you for listening. Until next time, UFC 3010 or 3010, UFC 310 is the next time you're going to see us. Until then, peace.
This is a business, and it's the business of warfare.
They're selling y'all wolf tickets, people. You're eating them right up.
Shit. Eu dei nothing. Shut your fucking mouth, you did nothing. I'm not surprised, motherfuckers.
Your game plan is to go in there, hit them with some good shit, don't get hit, and come home with a pocket full of cash.